Tweet here real quick. Also going live at www.youtube.com/Hawkeye podcast for those of you that want to see an old man, which is nobody. All right. Holy smokes. Got to turn this TV thing off. Move my stat sheet over to this side. And we're ready to go 27-22. The Iowa Hawkeyes emerge victorious over Minnesota, who hasn't won the Gophers. The Gophers have not won in Kinnick Stadium since 1999. I could not believe that today when I heard about it. 1999 is when I started blogging, writing professionally, meaning I got paid to do it. That's when I started this. Started doing that about the Hawks in 1999. The original Rivals.com network found me. I was emailing out my opinions on Iowa athletics to family and friends and had a 5,000 person distro, and somehow Rivals found me and said, hey, do you want to come do this on our new collection of websites? They're team-based websites. We've got something brand new called a recruiting database. Do you want to come be one of the first ever sports publishers? I said, sure. We'll pay you $1,000 a month. I'm like, righteous, bro. Let's go. That's the last time that Minnesota has won in Kinnick Stadium. And I got to hand it to Minnesota today. Really impressed with their game plan. Really impressed, for the most part, with their patience and commitment to the game plan. And even in the second half, when they threw the ball more, probably too many times, they came out throwing the ball because they expected Iowa to make the halftime adjustment of more run blitzes to slow down the run. So man, Minnesota they were guessing right, and Iowa didn't have a lot of answers. But man, I tell you what, and we'll take plenty of calls today. So those of you that are listening in on the Twitter Spaces, we'll definitely bring some of you on. I think down the lower left-hand corner or something, you asked to be a speaker. You can do that. I'm not going to probably get to you here for 15 or 20 minutes. You don't have to do it right away, but I'm definitely going to take several calls here since I'm back in the home command center. All right. Time of possession, Minnesota, 40 minutes and 19 seconds. Iowa, 19 minutes and 41 seconds. Iowa only ran 49 plays in this game. 49 plays. You only had the ball for 19 minutes and 41 seconds. You only had 277 total yards. Your opponent ran for 189 and had 409, and your opponent was 7 of 19 on third downs. Your opponent had 23 first downs to your 12. You were only 4 of 12 on third downs, and you also lost the turnover battle. 9 times out of 10, the statistical profile that Iowa had in this game is a loser. You lose that game. You get nothing. You lose everything. But this was that one time. This is that one time out of 10. Not really sure why PJ Fleck chose to go for it on 4th and 17 from his own end zone. Really surprised that he did that. I was texting with my brother and dad and Barney and also Scott, a few other people that I text with during games, and we were all surprised. And I'm like, guys, I don't know why he's doing this, because you know Kirk's just going to run the ball 3 times whenever he gets it, and you still have 1 timeout. Kirk isn't as interested in getting the first down as he is making you use that timeout and milking the clock to get it back to his defense, which is exactly what Iowa did from the Minnesota. Where did they get that ball? The Minnesota, where did it spot? Minnesota 11? Is that where Iowa got the ball? The 11-yard line? I can't even remember. Drive ended Minnesota 11. Is that it? I mean, PJ, why'd you do that? Why did you do that? You didn't need to do that. You would have gotten the ball back in much better field position, likely. But, you know, and you wouldn't have had to give up the easy 3 field goal. Anyway, whatever. They still had to, but not anyway, not whatever, because Iowa wouldn't have scored any points then. So a field goal, all you had to do was get it into field goal range, which you kind of did. I think that was a failure on PJ Fleck's part, going for it on 4th and 17. But we'll take it. And yes, is Kirk Ferentz the most conservative coach I've ever seen? Yes, he is. But like I said on Twitter, and he's also going to the Hall of Fame, and we are not. Iowa, with the victory, moves to 8-2. They have Illinois next week, which they absolutely should win that game to get to 9-2. And then they have Nebraska, the last game of the regular season. Nebraska, who fired 4 offensive coaches this week with 2 games to go. Yes, they had a bye week, but what the hell kind of chicken poop move is that from Scott Frost on the same day where he gets, he'll be here next year. Trev Alberts, their AD, says, yes, he'll be here next year. We've worked that out. And so you go fire those 4 coaches in this late in the season. That's horrible. That's freaking horrible. I hope Nebraska doesn't win another game ever. Well, then again, I felt that, before we started. But man, it's absolutely horrible what Nebraska did there. Now, we'll have plenty of time to talk about that. Anyway, let's get back to this game. Oh, Alex Padilla, right? First ever career start, Alex Padilla. We talked about this after the game last week, and at that time, I said, I think you got to start him. I think having his first ever game experience away from home was really good. Starting him at home against a beatable opponent in Minnesota is perfect. You need more data with which to judge Alex Padilla. This was the perfect thing to do. Petrus wasn't even on the 2 deep this week, so it's an injury situation, which makes it a lot less dramatic. And Padilla was 11 of 24, not stellar numbers there, 46% completion percentage for 206 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, one of those touchdowns came from Keegan Franklin Johnson, or Keegan F. Johnson. A lot of Iowa receivers have middle names of F, if you catch my drift. I cannot believe he scored on that play. It was a dead play. He has the most insane balance that I've seen from an Iowa receiver. And I said that before today. His balance after contact, his strength after contact, he does not just give up and go down. It's unbelievable. Now, he had a couple of drops today. One of those would have continued to drive. Iowa had to punt. I think there's at least 3 or 4 drops today. So Padilla's numbers would have been better, but I don't know that his number. I mean, he didn't throw any interceptions. There was 2 that should have been intercepted. So I'm not crowning Padilla as the next Drew Tate, but ladies and gentlemen, does he remind me of Drew Tate, which I've been saying that since April. And his ability to throw on the run is something that Iowa has not had since 2016 with C.J. Beathard. And then before that, Ricky Stanzi could do it-ish. Not the greatest at it, okay. James Vandenberg, nah. Jake Rudock, nah. Drew Tate, Brad Banks. Those guys could throw on the run. Alex Padilla is comfortable throwing on the run, not just to his strong side, right, where his strong hand is. He throws with his right. But in the first half, extending plays with his legs, running to his left, throwing across his body, which is incredibly hard to do, and I don't really like that, but defense definitely doesn't scheme for that. Hitting a tight end to extend a play. The second to last drive that Iowa had in this game, where it was like 3rd and 10, incomplete on first down. He took a deep shot to Isaac Bruce that landed off the shoulder pad of the defender, but it was one-on-one coverage, and I love the aggressiveness. Please remind me to come back to the – matter of fact, I'm going to write it down. Aggressive. I want to talk about something like that, something about that. So I love that. So that brings up 2nd and 10. The one play I would not have run, but Kirk was playing the clock game, I get it, is a run into the line like they did. Because now you're at 3rd and 10. There's a lot less pressure if you drop back and throw it on 2nd and 10 than there is on 3rd and 10. On 2nd and 10, you could find something, just a quick hitch for 5 yards. But Kirk probably didn't want the ball to be thrown out into the flat because he did have Ricky Stanzi at one point in time in Rick's first year as a starter. Pick 6 Rick. So Kirk thinks of all the negative things that can happen. And then on 3rd and 10, they call a pass play. I think it was a fake slant wide receiver tunnel screen and go that wasn't there. He looked left. Anyway, didn't like it. And then the pocket was collapsing. And he stepped up in the pocket and squirted out the right side. Completed it to Goodson, who gained 5-6 yards on that. But that was almost a 12 to 15 yard improvement in field position if that were Spencer Petras at quarterback. Petras would have gotten sacked. It would have been a loss of 5 to 7 yards. Hold on one second. I got to go shut my door here. My daughter's coming home with her friends. Little Gracie's 19 years old tomorrow, so she's got some friends here. Anyway, so, I mean, it's Padilla. And, folks, listen, was I wrong on – yeah. So it took an injury to get Padilla out there, which that will be a debate. I had somebody send me a question. I had somebody tweet me something this week. I'm going to pull it up and read it to you. I hadn't planned on doing that, but I said it would be a good podcast topic. So let's go ahead and see if I can find that. It was Hayden's Mustache who tweeted me this. The best quarterbacks of the Ferentz era: Banks, Stanzi, Tate, Beathard. All 4 clearly better than who they were behind, and the results prove that. The question is, why didn't Ferentz/O'Keefe identify it earlier or in practice? What weren't these guys doing in practice to stand out like they did once they finally got to games? And that's a great question. O'Keefe wasn't around for the CJB Rudock thing. And would true freshman Drew Tate have been better than JUCO transfer senior Chandler? I don't know. But I love me some Drew Tate, so I don't know. Brad Banks was not in possession of a significant enough amount of the playbook in his junior year to make the staff feel comfortable. That's why he and Kyle McCann split time. And I've talked with players from that team, and I hear it all the time. Ricky Stanzi and Jake Christensen, 2008, absolutely. Kirk held on to Jake too long. They should never have lost that Pittsburgh game, should never have gone back to Jake in the second half in that game. Iowa still wound up going 9-4 that year, but that could have been a really, really good team. And, Rudock in 2013 looked really good. So, but it's a great question. So, Petras or Padilla? I don't know what Padilla was doing in practice. I don't know what he was doing to not engender confidence. I know Spencer was another year in the program and things like that matter. I think Spencer probably had a greater grasp of the entirety of the offense and command of it, could get him in and out of plays better. So many things go into what goes on in practice to make these coaches, feel comfortable or not comfortable. But you know what? Sometimes people get hurt. And sometimes you get Wally pipped. Sometimes Wally Pipp gets hurt and they put in his backup who's named Lou Gehrig. And Lou never comes out of the lineup. And I think we might be there. As long as Padilla does not pee all over himself the next couple of weeks, then I think, and as long as he stays healthy, I would imagine that it's Padilla's job to lose. And I would imagine that Petras likely enters the transfer portal. And that's okay. Just because you prefer one quarterback over the other doesn't mean that you dislike the one that you're not backing. Doesn't mean that. By all accounts, I think Spencer Petras is a phenomenal teammate from every single thing I've heard. And Padilla is just maybe a better fit. And frankly, I really would like to see Iowa have a quarterback without cement shoes. I don't know that you can have that in the college game. I don't know that you can have a statuesque pocket passer. I don't mind Iowa passing out of the pocket and being a pocket passing type of offensive scheme. But you can't have a guy that can't do anything outside of the pocket. And we have Padilla now, who has played roughly 7. But I think that he's got that type of potential, and he has that type of skill set ability. And this year, for sure, with his inexperienced or, not quite ready for prime time, as the majority of the offensive line is, you need all the help you can get, because that line next year, even, without Tyler Linderbaum, is likely going to be collectively better. So anyhow, Goodson, 18 carries, 59 yards. Iowa averaged just 2.8 yards per carry, which is slightly worse than their season average, but it's pretty much on par. Minnesota's running scheme. I mean, just imagine if they had Mo Ibrahim. And they're down to their fourth, fifth string running back. They're playing their fifth and sixth string running backs because of injuries. It's insane. It is really insane. I've rambled quite a bit here, and I don't know that I'm going to have anything more profound to say off the top of my head. So let's bring folks in. If you want to come on, go ahead and request. I see Spanx in there. Nate, I see you. TRB. And I see invite to add as a speaker. And away we go. This is CJ. Go ahead, CJ. What's on your mind?
Just a good win, and like you said, I think Padilla not known as much, maybe his offense as Petrus, if that's the case. But I think it opens up. You can do more with him with even less plays because of his skill set. And I was just disappointed at the end how they ran the clock out instead of putting that in the end zone. That's it.
Yep. And thanks, CJ. I appreciate it. I think that a lot of people were disappointed as well. I think that – hang on one second. Yes, remove. I think that it would have been nice to try to go for a touchdown there. But you know what? Like, you had to know in the back of your mind that that's the way that was going to play out. Whether or not we liked it or not, you had to feel like in the back of your mind that that was the way that it was going to play out. And Iowa, once again, was fortunate. And they turned it over to their defense. Their defense answered the call. And they're 8-2, but not saying that I disagree with you at all. Let's go to next up as a speaker, Chase. Chase, go ahead. What's up? Chase, there you go, Chase. Turn on your mic, Chase. There you go.
Sorry, my bad.
Yep.
What's your in the fourth quarter? It seemed like Brian Ferentz's play calling got a little more creative to a point, I guess. It seemed like that Padilla was taking more shots down the field. What's your opinion on that? And is that something that they wanted Padilla to do more than Petrus, or just kind of how the game went on?
Chase, thank you. I appreciate those. Are great observations. And you just reminded me to come back to something that I wanted to talk about, and I forgot. Aggressiveness. This is a perfect way for me to remember. Alex Padilla, in the 7 quarters that I've seen him play, he is looking downfield first. He is looking his first reads, unless it's just like a hot slant that he knows he's going to, or he sees a matchup and going to a fade. He's looking deep first, and then he's coming back closer to the line of scrimmage, where the majority of the Iowa quarterbacks in the Ferentz era have started in the intermediate areas first and maybe looked deep. But Padilla is looking deeper first. And you know why I think that is? I don't have the answer. This is just a hypothesis, is that Alex is confident that he can get out of trouble with his legs, with his feet. And he feels like he has more time because of that. And he is seeing it well. And I love every bit of it. The double move that Charlie Jones put on for that touchdown was a thing of beauty. It's fantastic. The throw, I mean, even completing that throw, even though he was wide open and everyone's like, well, of course a Division I quarterback should complete something like that. How many times have we seen since kind of Nate Stanley started that a receiver's been that open and the ball's been thrown over their head? We've seen it a lot. So it's fun to have somebody that maybe can put the ball in the money, somebody that's maybe more adept and interested in taking deep shots. Let's go now to, this is BGOOS. Go ahead. You are on. You got to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
All right. I think you're talking about kind of the difference between Petrus and Padilla in practice. And I think the things you're seeing, like those, couple, obviously, kind of drop picks tonight. But, I think it's that difference of, he is a playmaker and he takes those chances versus that constant check down that we've seen year after year after year. It seems like almost like as guys are in the system longer, the chances we take are actually decrease. And I think that's, to me, I think maybe that's like one of the things that separates those backup guys from moving up into starting roles. So
yeah, I think you're right. I sometimes wonder if they don't try to press too much in practice to impress the coaches, and maybe they make more mistakes with their trying to stand out. But I think that you're right, and I think that it's an interesting thing. And this week too, keep in mind, Padilla had a chance to work with the ones, and he clearly loves finding Keegan Johnson, and that is a really good thing. And throw the ball as much as you can to Keegan Johnson and Arlen Bruce, as those guys are flat out playmakers. Let's bring in Sabelka. P. Sabelka, you're up. Go ahead, P. Sabelka. No? Not going to work? All right, sorry. Got to move on. Got to keep the show going. Next up is Roger. Once Roger connects and unmutes himself, we can hear what Roger has on his mind. Roger, are you there? There you go.
Hey, John, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hey, I don't think you had covered it yet, but what did you think about going for that fourth down when they were basically, I think it was their own 35?
Yeah, I personally loved it. And if they wouldn't have got it, I wouldn't have second guessed it because I wanted them to do that. But, there would have been some second guessing. If you can't get that much, if you can't get that yard, and it was close, but if you can't get it, then why are we out here? So I love it. I mean, I think that Iowa showed some aggressiveness. I think Minnesota called a really good game. I think that was just an old school Big Ten slobber knocker for a pig as a trophy. It was fitting for sure. So I'm all for it. Anybody else wants to come on, go ahead and you click request to be speaker. Just like Tom Anderson here. Tom Anderson, welcome to it.
Hey, so as I know they were aggressive later than they normally are, but I loved to see the aggressiveness, so to speak. I still hate the lockbox at the 3-yard line. That's terrible. I hate the lockbox.
Yeah.
However, the offensive linemen played really well today, I thought. What do you think?
I think that they created some really good lanes. I think their pass blocking was really good today. There might have been maybe 3 instances where they were within an arm's length of Padilla. I have to go back and rewatch it, but I don't think Padilla. Two things. I don't think Padilla was really pressured a lot, but maybe more importantly, I think there's been times where Petrus hasn't been pressured as much as he thinks he's being pressured, but because he's had a little PTSD of guys getting in there and getting on him, he hears pressure, phantom pressure, feels it, that's not there, and Padilla doesn't have that mental scarring yet. So yeah, I think that there was some really good pass blocking in this game. And that Minnesota defense, we talked about it last week, folks. I was saying, hey, let's temper our enthusiasm for Padilla. Not saying you can't get excited, but I'm going to temper my enthusiasm for Padilla because he was playing against the worst defense in the Big Ten last week in Northwestern. And Minnesota's defense, their run defense, was just behind Iowa's run defense in Big Ten games coming into this. And I'm guessing that Minnesota's run defense is now ranked ahead of Iowa's in Big Ten games after this game. So that was a legit defense today. Be the best defense they play likely the rest of the season, at least, with Illinois and Nebraska coming up. Nebraska is salty, but will Nebraska really want to be playing for anything at that point in time? I don't know. But yeah, Tom, I think that, there was some aggressiveness. And I think the line did well. I appreciate you coming on to this. Let's go next to Aaron. Aaron, you're up next. Unmute yourself and fire away. Aaron.
Got
Gotcha.
There you go.
Am I there?
Yep, you're
All
there.
right, sweet. First time I tried this. Thanks.
That's okay.
Hey, two things. First thing, early in the season when things were going so hot at 6-0, I kept reminding myself of the law of averages that you and Dace have talked about for years in regard to turnovers and plus minus and breaks.
Mhm.
Those intangibles that somehow Dace is able to put statistics to.
Right.
And it's like, okay, so teeter-totter swinging the other way now. We're 2-2. Hopefully we've fought through some of that and we can get those plus minuses back in our favor here the last two games to have a shot at Indy.
Yeah.
But second part, I didn't hear the play-by-play guy say anything on TV. Looked like in the first half they were running super tight. They were running super tight on the O-line, so we couldn't get gap control in the backfield. There was no gaps to fit through.
Mhm.
I think that's why they had a whole bunch of those nice runs in the first half. Is that what you guys were seeing too?
Well, I'd need to watch it again. I wasn't necessarily focusing on the splits, and I was listening to Podolak and Dolphin. But I think that Minnesota was bringing in a sixth and sometimes seventh offensive lineman regularly in this game. And sometimes if they had 6 O linemen in, they had 2 tights. Or if they had 7 O linemen in, they'd have a tight end. They're just a gigantic offensive line. And Iowa's defensive line is nimble and agile, and they are really good gap sound players. But sometimes you get, it doesn't matter how good you are if you get caught in a tsunami. And I think that that's what happened. And Iowa needed to bring more assets to attempt to stop the run. And they did that early in the second half. And they were able to have some success with that. And then it became a chess match the rest of the way. But tip your caps to Minnesota. They've been able to run the ball almost all season. And they did a fantastic job today. And they're just a big, gigantic offensive line. I think you're going to see Illinois next week try to run the ball 40 or 50 times as well. But they don't have the junk in the trunk along the line like Minnesota has. So I'm not as concerned with that. All right, appreciate it. Moving on to another back-to-back AA Rons. This is Aaron Bush. Go ahead, Aaron.
Hey, John. I don't want to beat a dead horse with the conservatism at the end of the game, but some of that play calling, just the QB sneaks to not put it in the end zone like they needed to, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But what's riskier, kicking a 29-yard field goal where you have to execute the snap and the hold and everything else, and then also make the field goal, or having 3 tries to put the ball in the end zone from the 3-yard line? It seems like the less risky thing to do is just to be aggressive, quote unquote, to get the touchdown. And the other thing I wanted to point out was it seemed like that was kind of a similar situation with the play calling on some of the last couple drives of the game where they're running Goodson on 3rd down and long. And I don't know if that was the coaches zigging when, Minnesota thinks we're going to zag, or whether that's them just trying to run the clock. But we're lucky that Tyler Goodson, made the extra effort, got a couple of those first downs, because without it, we would have lost the game.
I think that it was less thinking of zigging when they think we're going to zag, and more, well, they probably don't expect this on 3rd and 10, but we want to run it and be conservative lockbox anyway. And it worked. So I'm not necessarily going to throw out plaudits for the run calls on 3rd and 10. I just think that Iowa blocked them up. They made plays and caught Minnesota probably with an additional defensive back on the field. So if you want to say, hey, they schemed that, or Iowa's tendency, I don't know, but it's hard to get too excited relative to creativity along those lines and along those plays. I just think that Iowa was fortunate that they had some playmakers that made plays, and Goodson made some really good plays in this game. He wound up being short on that 10-yard run, and Iowa wound up getting the yard, but he put his head down at the end, knowing that he had to get the stick. I mean, he got robbed of the touchdown also in this game, but obviously he's a fantastic player. And if he's around next year, which I think he probably will be, because I don't know that he's got enough on film to leave early per se. He probably would get drafted, but it might be 6th or 7th round. But I'm not an NFL draft pick. Do I think he has, round 3 through 5 talent? Absolutely, he does. but I don't know that his tape's going to show that this year to make that move. Next year, playing behind a line that's going to be a lot better, I think his numbers will be a lot better. Let's go to Brad Geist. Brad, you are up. What's up?
Yeah, I was curious what you were thinking about two things. One, it seems like we've kind of gone away from the screen pass to Goodson. I'd like to see more of that. Seems like just kind of gone away from it. I know they've been doing some of those Texas routes out of the backfield, and those work really well when they use them. But just curious about the screen game. And then the second thing, I know you're an Iowa pundit, but do you think there's any chance that Minnesota or Nebraska beats Wisconsin? I'm thinking not. They've turned it on, but just curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, thanks, Brad. I appreciate that. As for the screens, I think that there was a couple of them that were called. And, I don't know how Alex did in practice this week with them, because honestly, you think it's simple to throw a screen pass, but there is a lot of traffic involved in setting up a screen. First of all, the running back leaks up into the line, the linemen block for a count or a half count, and then they let the defensive line come in, and then they have to go release out to the side, and then that running back has to go get in behind the wall of linemen that have been set up, and the quarterback has to complete that pass with 3 to 4 guys in his face breathing down his neck. And if you throw a lollipop pass and a linebacker's, sniffing it out, that could be intercepted. Or if you throw a line drive, it might not make it there because there's so a screen pass just isn't a given easy thing to do, in my opinion. So I don't know. Maybe Alex didn't do well in it this week in practice, so they didn't have it in, and he just requires more reps. I don't know that. But it's a good observation on your part. And relative to Minnesota or anybody else beating Wisconsin, it's not happening. Minnesota is not going to beat Wisconsin at Wisconsin's game. I think that I could see Minnesota having some success on the ground, maybe not as much as they had tonight, but at some point in time, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't know where that game's at either, but I just don't see I don't see Wisconsin losing another game. Appreciate it, Brad.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, man. I cut you off. Didn't got too quick on the trigger finger. Anybody else wants to come on? We'll bring you up. Just request to be a speaker if you'd like to come on and speak your mind. I almost say sound off. It's funny. It was great last week catching up with Ross and Travis. Those guys are in their 9th year of WHO 1040 radio sound off. And Zabel and I did it together for 9 years. So next year, Ross and Travis will have done it longer than I did it. And more power to them. More power to them. Let's see here. Okay. Probably going to get close here and wrap some of this up. I'm going to go to Twitter real fast just to see if there's any breaking news that maybe came out while we were talking. Tom Kakert quotes. Tom Kakert of Hawkeye Report says, on that last drive, Padilla said they were not trying to score, but trying to get Minnesota to use their last timeout. On the first 2 downs, 3rd down, they were trying to score, which were, they ran the ball to the left side. Okay. But yeah, we all knew that. I'm not saying that in dismissive of Tom's tweet. I'm just saying, yeah, we all knew that. Iowa Football Live tweets out that Tyler Goodson has been Iowa's leading rusher for 13 straight games, the longest streak by a Hawkeye since Sean Green led Iowa in rushing yards in 13 straight games. And I think Green had at least 100 yards in each of those 13 games, if I'm remembering correctly. But the older I get, the less I trust my memory. Todd Brommelkamp. Let me see here real quick. Yeah, Todd Brommelkamp of I want to get these letters right. KGYM Radio in Cedar Rapids tweeted a quote from Alex Padilla. Quote, "I've been dreaming about this moment ever since I was a little kid. Well, kid, I think the dream's going to continue, and I'd be all for it." Apparently, it's snowing in Iowa City right now. Padilla giving credit to Spencer Petras for help that he offered on the sidelines. Let's see here. Raphael Eubanks just tweeted out my favorite GIF of all time that I need to save so I can use it myself in the future. All right, that's probably going to wrap it up. I need to get out of the basement, let my daughter and her 5 friends take over and get the 50-year-old upstairs and out of their hair. Thanks to each and every one of you for coming on to these Twitter spaces. For those of you that listen to the podcast during the week, I really appreciate it very much. Next week, I think I may be out in Sedona, Arizona doing this. So we'll see if I can set up the spaces, bring the right equipment to do some callers as well. But my wife and I are getting away, and I'm taking some golf clubs. And yes, everywhere I travel from now on, the golf clubs come with me. All right, we will talk to you soon, and take care.